Are you a seven-figure practice owner that wants to do more without burning out? Join us for the Seven-Figure Practice Retreat, a luxury mastermind where high-level practice owners step away from the day-to-day to build systems, strategy, and freedom in the Dominican Republic. This February, spots are limited, so apply now, and our sponsors are covering 95% of the cost over at practiceofthepractice.com/7. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/7. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanak, session number 1274. I'm Joe Sanak, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we help you build a thriving private practice you absolutely love. We want both sides of that. We want you to thrive. We want you to do well, know the business stuff that we never learned in grad school, and also just love your practice, to show up. And when you look at your website, when you look at your ads, when you look at your branding, when you just are in session with people, you're like, dang, I created something amazing. This is awesome. I love this. We want you to just have the you really come out in your practice. So that's why we interview people in so many different sections of the industry, people that are even outside of our industry, to just find those nuggets, to find those really interesting things. Literally earlier today, for you, all of you, it was yesterday, but earlier today, I interviewed Colin Fisher, who is a jazz musician that also was talking about managing teams and how the ideas of jazz interact with the ideas of teams. And this is a dude that's a professor in London, and he's in the London jazz scene. He's not a clinician, but he's doing things that we can learn from. His new Harvard Business Review article, it's all about listening. So if you missed that episode yesterday, episode 1273, it was awesome. It was all about how groups in general can help you unlock kind of more when you're thinking from a management point of view. All sorts of just really interesting things. We also just talked about grief in politics and society. So, there's a lot of things shifting in the world, and how do we deal with that? And so Sarah Jaffe, who is a journalist that has written for all sorts of really big places, she was just a couple episodes ago. So go back and check out some of those. We've covered so many different things lately that have been super interesting to me, and I know you'll find interesting. I know for myself, when I learned what A/B testing was, I was like, it's so simple, and why have I never heard this? And so that's why I'm so excited today to have Brandon Grill with me. Brandon owns BG Copywriter, a marketing agency that helps therapists fill their practices with clients. He provides tailored SEO strategy, website copywriting, and ROI-driven Google Ads campaigns. At BG Copywriter, Brandon and his small team specialize in mental health marketing. They don't work in any other niche. Brandon and his team are freelancers at heart and know the only way to survive and thrive in business is to deliver great results, namely more booked clients for their therapist clients. Brandon's best known for his commitment to self-improvement inside and outside of his profession. A longtime meditator and runner, Brandon is an uncle to 3 and enjoys being the good role model for them that he didn't always have for himself. Brandon, welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I got to ask, because I'm a therapist, you had it in your bio. You said a good role model for them that you didn't always have for yourself. What do you mean by that? What's the change you're trying to make?
I think when I say being the role model that I didn't always have is that I'm present, sober, engaged. I love nature. I take care of my body, and I'll do small things with my niece and my nephews. Literally I'll hold my niece while I cook, and she loves it. And so do my nephews. I'll have them help me chop an onion, and, I'll be there to make sure they're safe. And, I really think kids are more simple than they've been portrayed. They really just want to be included, and comforted and safe. And so I try to be that for my niece and my nephews. And my brother is finally having his first kid in February. So I'll be a 3-time nephew uncle.
That's awesome. Very cool. Congratulations. Yeah, I know my sister lives in my backyard and over 2 houses. And so my 2 daughters and my 3 nieces all are always running around together. So it's super fun to have that. Well, so let's talk about therapy. So you work with therapists in the SEO, copywriting, and ad space. A lot has kind of shifted in that space. What was true a couple years ago that now you would say is no longer true?
True a couple years ago that now is not true. I think like going back to the start of SEO, where there was like a lot of, and I feel like it's trite at this point, but I'll just say it so we're all like together. Like there's a lot of keyword stuffing, not keeping the reader at the center of any piece of content, like kind of like juicing numbers, just getting a lot of traffic for no real business purpose. I think nowadays it's at such a competitive level that the strategy really, really, really needs to be dialed in. And I was just sharing with somebody, for me, strategy is what we don't do. It's like eliminating the things that don't move the needle. So every action we take leads to new clients or sets us up to eventually lead to new clients. I think when I think about like principles of marketing or like SEO, is it going to lead to book clients for therapy practices, which at the end of the day is like, we're about impact, right? Is it going to, like, if it's an educational piece of content, does it add to the online conversation for that specific topic or keyword? And really just trying to like deliver value as the reader sees it, not the value as like I, the writer, see it, but like, what does the reader actually want to read and what do they need to hear to like be consoled? And what order? There's always like a narrative flow to a blog or to like a service page. So those are like a few things that I keep in mind. I feel like I answered the question, but also like took it in a different direction. But
no, that's all good.
Yeah.
Take us through kind of service pages. Like I would love to kind of talk about just basics of a website, and then maybe talk a little bit more about the A/B testing with ads and how that quickly improves websites. So like basic things of a website, what are people doing wrong? Where can they improve? I know you have a lot of teachings around just like, the basic formula for like a services page. Maybe take us through that and then talk about what people do wrong and what they should be doing.
Yeah, I think like to get back to the planning and the strategy just for a moment is like, a lot of practices don't know that a catch-all services page isn't the best approach. So they'll have like their online therapy, trauma therapy, anxiety therapy, depression, like all on one page. And I think it's a good idea in theory, but when it comes to SEO, people don't really discover pages like that because they're too broad. So any service page, like say we're promoting like an IFS therapy modality that we have at a practice, we want to write a page very specific to IFS therapy. And then, so that's like the starting point. And then when people are actually on the page, there's a few things that I like to cover that I've just seen work well for my clients. And I love sharing this. I like give the whole story away. So usually how I structure a page is, the hero section, the most important thing is the first thing that they see on screen. Does it catch their attention? If it doesn't, then, they're definitely not booking or like submitting a contact form. So we really want to capture their attention. Then I'll do pain points, like a pain point section, benefits, how therapy actually works, or like in this case, how IFS works. And we could even go a step further and say how it works at our practice. Just like personalize it a little bit, make sure it's not like every other, page on the internet or IFS therapy page on the internet. So we have hero section, pain points, benefits, how it works. Then I like to introduce the therapist. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Kind of explain why they're the best therapist for that service, or if not the best, why they're at least like a worthy consideration. Then we'll do like contact form, frequently asked questions, and like a final like push section, like, hey, you're already here. You're thinking about IFS. Why not just join us? Free consultation. So that kind of thing. Sprinkle, anonymous testimonials throughout there, really show that social proof element. And, for one client, we did a stat bar. So like 15,000 hours of clinical work, or like 8 years serving in Ann Arbor, or I think he was in Ann Arbor. We did like 8+ years working with autism specifically. So, really just giving people a reason to trust us. I think the reason that a page like that works so well is because it tells the entire story. There's not really any part that's missing. If there is, people might start to look for an email and try to contact you, and like rather than submit a form and get the inquiry process going, which is okay, but we want to optimize for like actually getting people in therapy. So that's just a common structure that I'll use for a service page.
So good. Now, how do people know what's working on their website and not?
Yeah. Oh, this is like right up my alley, especially in the last like year. So really, we want to be looking at conversion rates at all times for all of like the key pages that are meant to get a form submission or an email or a phone call. So commonly that's like the home page, sometimes the about page, but really it's like all of the key service, modality, treatment, specialty pages, or even like location pages. So what we could look at is if the page gets 100 or 1,000 people on it, how many people take that conversion action that we desire? It's really easy for WordPress. You know, there's a plugin that I love. It's called Nelio A/B Testing. It's like free for 500 page views, and then probably like a small fee after that. So that is a really beautiful plugin because we could set up an A/B test, and I'll just give you like one example, Joe. For one client, we had like a narcissistic abuse therapy page, and it was converting at like 2%. And I felt like the writing was good. I felt like the headline was good. Like the hero section image was good. And I was like, you know what? Maybe it's because the call to action button is purple and the background is also purple. So it doesn't really like stand out. So I went completely the other way. I made it neon blue, and the difference was like 30%. So it went from like a 2.3% conversion rate to a 6.37. So like in actual terms, like a 4% difference, you know? And so we could talk for a second about like, where does that data and the testing really come from? It could come from two places as far as I'm aware, which is SEO traffic and then, you know, paid traffic, like Google Ads traffic. If we're paying for it, we're like, I mean, either way, we're like really testing it. But I think the idea with Google Ads is if we're paying, you know, $5 to $15 per click, you know, just roughly, we want to get as many people who click to sign up as possible. So constant A/B testing. Another fact that I think the listener would really love, the pages that do the best have been tested 11 times more than the pages that don't. So it's just a constant process. It really depends on the budget or if it's SEO, it just depends on like the speed of how quickly we could get people on that page. But it is so essential. You know, I'm honestly at the point where I've been like telling clients if they have a limited budget, let's just do A/B testing. We don't need to add a new blog yet because we don't even know if that blog will contribute to a conversion yet. Like we really want to dial in the conversions before we start pouring traffic. It's always a little of both. But like increasing the conversion rate is just so much more impactful.
I want to thank Headway for sponsoring this episode. If you run a group practice, you know that accepting insurance can be overwhelming. Between credentialing, billing, and payroll, the admin side can easily take over your week. Headway was built to help you handle this, and they're the only platform designed specifically for in-network group practices. Whether you're growing your team or running an established practice, Headway makes the business side easier with faster credentialing, higher per-session rates, and bi-weekly payments your team can count on. They work with therapy, psychiatric, and hybrid group practices. There are no subscription fees, just the support you need to run your practice with ease. Run your best group practice with Headway, trusted by thousands of group practice leaders to simplify insurance admin and reach more people through in-network care. Curious how Headway can work for you? Head to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe to learn more. So like, how much should someone budget for their kind of first couple rounds of doing ads?
Yeah, so it varies pretty significantly on location and like service. So like I was looking at Online Therapy Chicago, it's like $16 a click. But IFS therapy in Boulder is like $2 a click. So it really depends on that. I think in the ideal situation, we would get whatever the average cost per click is and multiply that by 150 to 300, because that's how many clicks we want in a month. So we could further optimize the account. Another way to look at it is we could look at, like, after we have some conversions, we could look at, like, okay, it takes us like 40 to 60 bucks to get one contact form for ADHD therapy in Ontario, Canada. So now we could ask, well, how many leads do we need each month to keep all of our therapists full? And then kind of reverse engineer the math. I recently did this with a practice in Memphis, and we realized we needed to be spending more than twice as much to like get the velocity that they wanted to grow. So it really just depends. I hate giving that answer, but it really just does depend, and it's always like a case by case basis.
Yeah. So what do people learn through this A/B testing? Like typically, like what are some of the core things that they typically learn through doing A/B testing with ads?
Yeah. Well, so we test the ads and we also test the landing pages. So for the ads, like within the Google Ads interface or platform, we want to make sure like our ads are getting clicked probably like at least 7% of the time. That's when we know we're doing like pretty well. So if 100 people see the ad, 7 people click it. If we're doing above that, like we're happy, that's like a good velocity or momentum. When it comes to the landing page, there is so much to test. And a lot of it really, like the first 20 tests are all in the hero section, like testing the button color, the headline color, the subheading, any supporting image. So there's so much that we can test, and it really is like an iterative process. I wanted to say inherited. I've gotten a client who previously worked with a web design agency, and running ads to that specific service page was not really converting. And it makes me sad because, sometimes therapists spend 5 or 10,000 working with an agency, and like the website could look really beautiful. But I think at the end of the day, like the impact we want is to like get people in therapy and help them in their real life. So to me, it just tells me like we always got to test our assumptions. We can't assume the page will do good. We have to, test it with real traffic.
So awesome. Now, when you think about maybe changes that people make as a result of some of the SEO things that are happening in the world right now, how should people be thinking about SEO and what works to attract the ideal clients to their pages?
Yeah. Honestly, I would say avoid informational content unless it's tied to like very specifically to location. And what I mean by that is if we're looking at like the funnel, like a content funnel, the bottom where the conversion actions, I know Joe, where the conversion actions happens is usually on the service page, the home page, the about page of a website. A little bit above that is what we call middle of funnel, where we're talking about like, oh, what's the cost of, autism therapy in Ann Arbor? And really like answering objections, clarifying, giving the facts. Above that is top of funnel. So it could be like, what is autism therapy? So we would really want to avoid a top of funnel piece of content like that. It may have a lot of like traffic for that keyword, but that traffic is really not going to convert into therapy clients. And there's also like the opportunity cost. As we're writing that piece of content, what are we not writing that we could? So I think to put that more concretely, the reason why we would want to avoid a top of funnel piece of content is that, we're competing with Psychology Today, especially on like the informational types of content. So we're probably not going to rank for that. And then even if we did, say somehow we did rank number 1 for like what is autism therapy, it's not really going to necessarily at least lead to new clients because it's still too far removed from looking for the actual service.
Now, how does AI fit into all this? I know that a lot of people are using AI to write all sorts of like blog posts or to run their ads. Every day I get ads about running ads from AI. how are you conceptualizing how it fits in, how it doesn't fit
Mhm.
in, when it's worth using AI, when it's not? Like AI, go
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, yeah. So like, let's do three breakdowns, like SEO, copywriting, and Google Ads with AI. So SEO, like another reason we want to avoid that top of funnel content is because when somebody does search, for example, what is autism therapy, the AI overview has that down pat. Like we're never going to rank higher than that. We might find our way into the results that they pull from, but really like they have that, right? So we want to kind of choose our battles a little more carefully now in the age of AI, at least when it comes to SEO. So the next thing is like copywriting. Like if we're using AI to write a page, which a lot of us by now we can spot it. We won't always because it's going to get insanely good. Like it doubles in capacity every 7 months. But currently, at least, copy written by AI has been proven not to convert as well as copy written from the human heart. I think that just makes sense. You know, the universe is kind of a dream. We're in like a dream reality, I believe. And so it only makes sense to me that the energy which we do things with kind of makes its way into the writing. And then the person reading that kind of feels that, you know, whether they notice it or not. And so AI just feels a little cold, a little like unrelatable, a little too good, you know, a little too clean, like not really any errors, 50 M dashes, which, you know, easy to remove. But even if we remove the M dash, it doesn't really connect with other humans as well as writing from a human. So there's that aspect. And, you know, I know of at least one mentor who has A B tested a landing page with AI versus his own writing. Every time his own writing does better. So I really recommend like hiring a good copywriter or really like learning the basics and really, you know, going all out, maybe asking somebody for feedback. When it comes to Google Ads, you know, I think something similar applies where when we're writing the ads that people see in the search engine results, writing from the heart oftentimes is going to do better than, you know, whatever Google is recommending to us. I've been like really disappointed by the AI that's in the Google Ads platform because it just like sometimes it's not even relevant. You know, like I'll be like doing ads for individual therapy and it'll start saying things about like team counseling. So it's maybe it'll get there currently, you know. So let me talk for a second about like how to use AI, right? So I use AI a lot as like a proofreader or like a second opinion. So as I'm like developing an outline for a blog, I will gather ideas. Like I'll just brainstorm ideas. I'll gather ideas from the internet, maybe from Reddit, kind of build it into an outline that I could see working. And then just ask an AI like ChatGPT, like, hey, are there any gaps here? Like, is this comprehensive? Am I missing anything? And almost 100% of the time, it'll give me something that I can use. And then that just makes the piece more comprehensive, more likely to rank because it actually solves the problem that the searcher was looking for. So that's just one way that I use it. But yeah, I really like the topic of AI. I feel like it's so easy to lean on it heavily, but it's not always wise to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people can see through a lot of it, and just really figuring out like how do you use it to brainstorm and come up with ideas. And then on the other side of it, just like, you know, acting like a copywriter or an editor to say like, oh yeah, you missed some commas, things like that.
Yeah.
So,
And also like I just want to do a public service announcement if I could. Please, anybody who comes across this interview, like never use AI for LinkedIn posts. Like we could just see it a mile away. Anybody who's been on LinkedIn since like pre-AI, especially. And to get back to the point of like even social media marketing is like, and I'll tailor that specifically to like mental health marketing. We want to connect with people we know, like, and trust. And AI is like, there's not really anything that stands out to know, like, or trust. So.
Yeah, so awesome. Well, Brandon, if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
One thing that came to mind is like, I think probably no matter what service, we'll just talk about like Google Ads, no matter what service is being promoted for a practice, if they've spent at least like $500 and haven't even gotten one contact, like one email button click, whether or not the person actually sent the email, one phone number click, whether or not they actually called, one therapy portal click, or like one contact form submission, I would really get a second opinion. I've, in the last like 3 months, actually, I've consulted with 3 practices. One did 1,900 in spend, no form submissions. One did like 9,000, but also including the website. So probably like 4,000 on ads, no clients. And then a third one in California, they did 8,997. So basically $9,000 and got 3 clients. So, we can't really afford to pay $3,000 per client. I really just suggest anybody running ads, if they've spent 500 or more and hasn't even gotten one contact form, just get a second opinion.
So smart. Brandon, if people want to contact you, work with you, talk to you, where should we send them?
Yeah, either LinkedIn, look me up, Brandon Grill, or bgcopywriter.com. I'm currently, revamping things on the website, but I won't say I'm not proud of it. I made it really well, as best as I could 3 years ago. So, so if anybody wants to reach out, one of those 2 places.
Oh, so awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
I think, it's interesting to talk to so many different people about when we're thinking about ads, when we're thinking about copywriting, SEO. It's one of those things that it's smart for us to know what we're doing to an extent, but also in the same way with our accounting, you need to know some of the basics of it, but do you want to become an expert in this area? So, reach out to our friends like Brandon to get some help specifically in the area of ads, copywriting, SEO. And also, we couldn't do the show without our sponsors. Headway is one of our newest sponsors, and they work with therapy, psychiatric, and hybrid groups. There's no subscription fees, just the support you need to run your practice with ease. One of my best friends just this weekend told me how he's been using Headway and how easy it is for him to get clients through there. If you're unsure if they'll work for you, head on over to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe, and you can book a call to have a conversation with them. Thanks for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.